This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended to cause or induce breach of an existing agency agreement.
Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
And welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm Cory Wright.
And I'm Melisa Moretti.
And today we have an outstanding guest join us. We have all the way from Ireland, we have Dan Eagling, who's the development manager with Cairn Homes. And Dan used to work in the development world in Vancouver. He has now moved his family over to Ireland, which they deal with a very similar market to us, high demand, tough rental market. So we wanted to bring Dan on to find out what is happening over in Ireland and England. How is inflation affecting that? What are interest rates like? How is it affecting supply chains and increasing costs? So a great episode to kind of give us a little bit of insight of what's happening around the world, not just here in Vancouver.
Yeah, great conversation with Dan, that's for sure. One thing I want to mention, though, I feel like today I'm sitting here with a local celebrity. So Cory Wright, my co-host here, was named top 40 under 40 by BIV this week or last week. So congrats to you. Well deserved. I was looking down the list, waiting to see my name. I didn't find it. I think that perhaps they missed it.
No,
but
you were probably 41.
Next year.
You were probably 41.
Yeah.
That's like it. So I appreciate that.
So congrats to you. That's very exciting. Huge accomplishment. I know you're just a hair under 40. So
yeah. So I probably got the sympathy vote. There's probably 41 people that applied. One guy probably packed up, moved to Ontario, so he couldn't win it. So they just throw me in the mix to get to their number 40 is probably what happened. I appreciate it. I'll give the typical cliche answer here. I think I speak for everybody on the list. None of it's possible, though. Great, amazing team. And it's a personal recognition, but there isn't a phenomenal team behind me that's I'm sort of accepting it on behalf of all of us.
Very humble.
On behalf of all of us. We were talking earlier as well about, I was fortunate to sort of sit in on a BMO webinar recently, and they were talking about interest rates and how potentially that could unfold in 2022, 2023, and 2024. Now, again, these are all just hypothetical scenarios, but I found very interesting on that they thought interest rates potentially might be higher at the end of 2023 than where we finish in 2022.
I mean, I hope you're wrong.
I do too.
In some ways.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah, but I guess we'll wait and see.
So I think right now the BOC rate, so we're sitting here end of November, and the BOC, the Bank of Canada overnight posted rate is 3.75.
Yeah.
There's a meeting coming up on December 7th, which I think the prediction is 50 basis points, which would give us to 4.25 at the end of the year. And one of the BMO predictions was that we might be at 4.5% at the end of 2023. So over the next 12 months, we still could see interest rates potentially go up a little bit, not down. So we might have to hold on here a little bit longer. Now, again, there's a number of factors that can play into that could change those numbers good way, up or down. But they do think rates are going to kind of probably hold steady throughout 2023. And then they think the decline will probably happen in 2024.
Interesting.
So we'll have to see how that
we'll
plays out.
See.
How are things on your end? I know you're busy, residential world.
Yeah, you know what? It's mostly steady. Our team we're always steady. It's typically a very slow time of year in, late November, December, regardless. Of course, interest rates and other factors are...
Interest rates and cocktails.
Interest rates and cocktails.
That's what slows down the residential market in Vancouver. Interest rates and cocktails.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know what? I think like I said, I think last time there's a lot of opportunities for people. I think there's some challenges for a lot of people, but we're still chugging along.
Good. Well, without further ado, we'll get to our interview today with Dan Eagling of Cairn Homes all the way from Ireland. Enjoy, guys.
All right, let's go.
This week's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Impact Commercial Group.
Really enjoy working with Impact Commercial. And we should say Al and his team can basically do anything when it comes to lending.
Anything when it comes to under the commercial umbrella. You're building a building and development, we got you covered. You're buying land, we'll make that happen for you. You investing in a property or multifamily building? Check. Owner occupiers looking to acquire their own space? Double check. Anything commercial financing you need, Impact Commercial is your go-to.
impactcommercial.ca. And we should say over 50 years of combined experience. So trust these guys. They're the right fit.
Best in the business, in my opinion. All right, we're here with Dan Eagling, Development Manager, Cairn Homes, calling in today from Ireland. Dan, how are you doing today?
Not too bad, Cory. Not too bad. And yourself?
Good.
It's late in the evening here, but looking forward to chatting with you this evening.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time on here, and we're slowly building these international correspondents. We've had people on from Edmonton. We've had the ladies of Scout Real Estate come on from Calgary. We had Peter Leung from Hong Kong, and now we've got Dan calling from Ireland, who's going to be our international correspondent here to help us out. We wanted to have you on today, Dan, because obviously inflation around the globe is going nuts everywhere. It's hitting places like where you are and Europe especially hard. And we wanted to have someone come on today, talk to us all about how is this affecting the residential and maybe commercial, for that matter as well, development markets where you are. Can you maybe tell our listeners more about yourself, Dan?
Yeah, for sure. Look, I was living in Vancouver for about 8.5, 9 years, working for child development. And about a year ago, I recently moved over with my wife and family, a little fella and dog as well. Moved halfway around the world to Ireland, to her homeland. We wanted the access to, I'll say, the rest of Europe and the excitement of travel that enticed us to come this way, as well as being close to family. So it's a bit of history of being in Vancouver and then moving over here. Started working for Cairn Homes, been there for just over a year now as a development manager. And, in the weeds of it, working on one of the biggest projects that we have, which is a total of 5,500 odd homes approximately at this given stage over the next sort of 10 years is our target. It's one of the largest greenfield sites left within Dublin outer region, which we're really excited to put shovels in the ground basically in January. So been full steam ahead on that since arriving.
And then, Dan, maybe just for the entertainment purposes, our permitting system over here in Vancouver is very archaic. I'm explaining it to you as if you haven't been through this time and time again when you were here. How is the permitting process over there? How does it differ and maybe good or bad?
Yeah, look, I always, sometimes it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't, in some ways of putting it there. But look, when I was in Vancouver, you used to always pull your hair out and just drive yourself mental with the timelines that it would take. I'll say it's not that much better over here. Look, there's some interesting insights and views, I would say, that are slightly different and maybe more upfront and in the direction of where things need to go. However, unfortunately, there's a few archaic rules as well over here, such as, basically you can be living anywhere in the country and put up a judicial review, which basically stalls and delays any project, any development across the country, which makes things very interesting. And look, I'd say the timelines are very, very similar by the time you get through all the judicial reviews and further information requests from the councils over here. So it's one of those things that you can't really run away from, unfortunately.
So just for clarity, you have a development going on, let's say 100 miles away. I get wind of your development. I don't like it for whatever reason, or I just maybe don't like you as a person and I want to make your life harder than it has to be. I can put in a judicial review to say, I don't think this project should move forward. This is why. And then that's going to end up on council's desk. It's going to have to be reviewed and then looked into.
Yep, that's exactly it. And, it can be, you can have no impact. It can not impact any sight lines for you. You can be oblivious to it. You can just not like the brick color, for example, and, put in a judicial review, which is, makes for interesting times, but, look, I think it's just part of the parcel over here. You learn to live with the potential of this kind of happening and you know how to work around it. And for the most part, I would say the general population is fairly up to speed and fairly on board with the developments. And, I would say that we're not doing anything outrageous. We're not going to crazy heights. I think the tallest building we have here in Dublin is about 16 stories, if I'm correct. So it's not a very tall city, to put it simply. So keep things nice and low and sprawling.
You're making the Vancouver permitting process sound very attractive over here. That hasn't happened for quite some time.
You've got to give it some love every now and again, right, haven't you?
So, Dan, one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to have you on, like we said at the start of the episode here, was inflation rates around the globe have been sky high. You guys in Europe and Ireland, you guys have seen that. How is that portrayed, or how has that affected the real estate business over there? Over here, we're obviously dealing with supply chain issues and interest rates and all that because of that. What are you guys seeing over there, especially mainly where you guys are in Ireland?
Yeah, look, for sure. Look, we are seeing very similar. Cost of materials is going through the roof. It's an interesting market being part of the Eurozone. Obviously, Ireland being on their own makes it a little bit harder. We're always importing everything. However, being part of the Eurozone, there's a big buying power. So materials. Look, we've seen month-on-month increases with inflation, which in turn, you're seeing the add-on effects to the cost of living crisis, which I'm sure has made the media over there. But the cost of living crisis here in Europe and the UK is, it's kind of through the roof, to be perfectly honest. To just take a step back, here in Ireland, they have a very interesting way about going about mortgages ever since the 2008 crash, which, as I'm sure a lot of the listeners are aware, this is where a fair bit of the epicenter was here in Ireland, where, people could get 110% mortgages and go crazy. And since then, there's been a real restriction on being able to obtain mortgages and the lending side of things. So, for a family purchasing a home, you capped it. It was 3.5 times your household income. It only just recently, in the last couple of months, changed to 4 times, and they're very strict on that. So it very much, that's your max. There's no leverage up or down from that 4 times your household income, which makes things very interesting with the prices here in Dublin. It's the most expensive city here in Ireland, so prices are skyrocketing in the housing market. But it's this weird equilibrium where they can't get too far out of touch of where the household income can actually afford to buy because the lending is so strict. So, taking a step back to Ireland and looking at the housing market, it's very much in demand. We have a huge shortage ever since 2008. For approximately 12 years after that, there was no building. So there was no new construction of homes. We're on a trajectory right now of approximately needing 40,000 homes per year. And I think at the moment we're only hitting about 26,000, if we're lucky, per year, with, a further backlog of about 500,000 homes that we're behind. So the demand is there. The market is there. It's just trying to find that right price point, which is becoming harder and harder as a developer to be able to hit that with all the inflation that's coming in. We're seeing it across the board, but we're getting creative. We're having to change the way we build, change what offering we give, and look at, ask the serious questions of, does it come down to us having flooring in or no flooring in? Does it come with appliances or not come with appliances? And these are the hard questions that you have to start to ask, really, at the end of the day.
So, Dan, you mentioned there was a gap in the construction world. Was that mainly derived by the financial meltdown that caused that gap in construction?
Yeah, it absolutely was. It's kind of something that, you hear about on all the movies and media and all this kind of stuff. But to actually see the fallout, we're 2022 now. So we're a number of years on that, you look back and kind of go, wow, we're still seeing the effects of what happened back then. It's quite surprising, but it wiped out construction companies, a lot of the workforce. That was when, there was a big drive for the Irish to leave and go to other countries. A lot went to Canada, a lot went to Australia, a lot went to the UK and never came back. That being said, with the current crisis in the UK and, they're seeing, I think, what was the numbers the other day, about a 44% slide in demand on property there, on month there. Yeah, so that was September, in October, 44% drop there. So a lot of the guys that went to the UK are actually starting to come back, and our company ourselves have hired a lot of guys that have come back from the UK into the construction industry back here in Ireland, and it's a great industry to be in. To be honest with you, back here, it's booming. It's just that hard bit of trying to find the balance between inflation and being able to make the margins on the other end to keep a company afloat.
Right. So Dan, some developers over here are saying that construction costs have gone up about 30% in the last year. Are you guys seeing a similar thing there, or what are you seeing over in Ireland and in the EU?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I would say easily 30%. We've seen some projects that were 50% higher. And we just recently did some costing on some civil infrastructure works, and it came in at 50% higher as well. So we're definitely seeing it, and it's not easy to then turn around and still have the margins that you need to make for your investors, and then turn around and try and produce something that you can sell at the right price point at the other end.
So Dan, with like that much demand, just for like a comparison standpoint, what would I be paying for a price per foot, let's say, either of a house or a townhouse or a condo, with that much demand and you guys dealing with all these rapid increase in costs?
Let me do the quick math on that.
I'm putting you on the spot here. And just so you know, whatever you say on this show, we fact check. Okay. So everything's fact checked.
Excellent. Even more pressure. Nothing like a little bit of pressure, right? Just doing a couple of conversions because, we like to work in square meters to square feet. And all that
there you go. You
There's-
threw him off there.
It's the dreaded 10.76% thing.
That's exactly it. We are seeing, like, in a very good neighborhood, you're seeing a price per square foot of 450 odd, in that kind of range.
And that's
which I
obviously
know
euros, right? So
That
now we
is
have
euros,
to convert
that
that
is
to Canadian here.
I'll let you guys try and do that conversion back.
Corey's on it.
Yeah. We're all over it, Dan. Don't worry.
Yeah,
We've got that figured out.
But when you start to think about that, it's actually not too bad. But then when you go back to the fact that you're capped at the 3.5 times, 4 times household income, on a $100,000 wage, you're times that by, let's call it 3.5 for now. That's you're only borrowing $350,000, and the rest you have to come up with. And over here you have to have a minimum 10% deposit. So, even if you got your household income, let's say you got it up to 150,000 times 3.5, that's only 525,000.
And then I need a minimum 10% on top of that, at least.
Exactly. So, when you think about that, that's kind of your price point in and around 600,000. And like, that's where things get tapped out. And, the median average sort of wage over here, I believe last time I checked was around 36,000. Don't quote me on that. I would need to look that up to confirm. Around 36,000
Wow.
a year. So it's, when you start to look at those, it starts to paint a bit of a different kind of picture. It's, it's not like Vancouver where, I don't want to say that the tap was on and you kind of could just do the best you could and see what you go into the bank and see what you come out with and not really ever have to worry about, it's only 3.5 times, 4 times. But it is a very interesting market when you are trying to price these houses at the appropriate market, especially when you talk about first-time home buyers. That's obviously a crucial one that, there's a lot of the demographic that's between, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's 22 to 29, might even be to 32, that are still living at home,
Wow.
Because they can't get into the market because houses are just beyond a single income. So you can't afford them. And, since the 2008 crash, obviously there's a consensus, well, I wouldn't say a consensus, but a general market view on apartments that you don't want to own an apartment. Unfortunately, a lot of people got burned in 2008 and it's still to this day struggling to pay them off and try and get above what they owe on it and make some money on it to move on to a house. So, the idea of the housing continuum that I know Byron Chard loves to talk about, moving along the housing continuum, it doesn't exist, unfortunately, over here, which I think is a real missing market, to be perfectly honest.
So Dan, with that said there, with the 10% minimum and then obviously the 3.5 multiplier on your income, how many people are buying properties with 10%? Is there a market there that I make $150,000, but I'm buying an $800,000 or $900,000 house because I've got the extra cash or equity I've built in other property? Is there a market there, or is it really constrained when you guys are looking into what you're building and where you're building?
It's a very, very small market. Look, it is there, Cory. I don't want to say that it isn't, because it is there. There's also the bank of the parents, which always comes into play sometimes. But, it's such a small market that you wouldn't be, we don't position ourselves going into a development with the mindset that we are targeting that demographic. We do go into the market as targeting first-time home buyers, new immigrants to the country. There's a lot of culture here where people want to, buy a house right near their family, right near their parents, right near their brothers and sisters. And so it does become harder and harder then to get people to move. That being said, at the end of the day, you have to make sacrifices to get into the market and have a home.
So obviously in Vancouver and the surrounding areas, the rental market has just sort of exploded in the last year here. What's the rental market like where you are?
Yeah, it's funny you touch on that one. I would, had we had this call about 6 to 12 months ago, I would have said it is insane. It is, I think the term that they use over here in the media is vulture funds, which is actually just pension funds or big, property consortiums that have been put together to own apartment buildings. So predominantly for new developers, we are looking at, when we do a development that has apartments, we are looking to sell them to PRS, which is private rental sector. We are looking to sell them directly as a one-stop shop to the likes of a Greystar or a Savills or, so on and so forth, just to name a few. And it's just trying to see who's out there that would buy them. Unfortunately, with the rising inflation and the mortgage rates increasing, that PRS market has started to look a little bit more unsteady because the yields aren't quite there. However, there is such a strong rental sector here in Dublin that it is still propping that up. And, look, if you're an investor and you position yourself correctly, there's still great opportunities out there at the multifamily units, apartment buildings. But as a developer, we are starting to question whether it's as strong as it has been, unfortunately. As I say, though, it is such a strong market, the rental market here, that it's just trying to work out what that next position is, with obviously increasing interest rates and what does that look like into the short term here for the next 12 months.
With the kind of restrictions on, getting your own house with a 3.5 multiplier, what type of investment market exists there? If I have a house already, am I buying a condo as a rental investment similar to what I do in Vancouver? Is there a lot of restrictions around that on the mortgage side that sort of it doesn't, prohibits me from becoming an investor?
Yeah, for sure. Look, yes and no. I wouldn't say there is personally, from what I've seen in the market. Now, I think I have a little bit of a skewed view, unfortunately, from traveling the world and seeing other ideas. And, I kind of a little bit adverse to risk and understanding how the market works. But the ability is there. I would say that a lot of the time the legal system is in favor of the tenants. However, from what I've seen, it's nothing dissimilar to how it is in Vancouver. You still have your means to evict a tenant if they're not paying and so on. However, there's a mentality that it's potentially a little bit too hard to have a investment property in that aspect. Now, you do get taxed quite high on your personal income, so that's usually a factor. And then you do have to have minimum 30% down if you're buying an investment property as well. So sometimes there are factors into it.
Do you guys have similar type rental restrictions that we have over here with regards to annual increases and stuff like that?
Yes, we do. We have rent freeze in certain areas, so it can only be increased by a very minimal percentage, so it's a zoned area, for example. So it might be certain suburbs are zoned like that. That being said, there is opportunity out there. There's plenty of apartments in the city centre and walk-up townhomes that are great rentals. And unfortunately, there's a massive need for rental here. It's just trying to work out that, as I say, that next 12 months of the mechanisms that actually work where, interest rates aren't too high, that you're actually affording your payments back to the bank, but also having a rental income. So it's definitely there.
So you must be following what's happening in Vancouver in terms of our market here. What are your thoughts on the Vancouver market right now?
That's an interesting one. Yeah, definitely following it and keeping an eye on it. Still obviously heavily invested there and have a lot of friends and family there that like to stay in close contact with. I think it's slowly changing. I think the true value of things is starting to be shown. If you've got investments in the right areas and it's set up correctly, I think it's still moving. Obviously, starting to see a little bit of a dip. Coming from Sydney, Australia, it's like we've seen plenty of dips that it ended up being just more of a plateau at the end of the day, and it's kind of hard to tell at this point. It's still very early days. Look, I think things are going to probably get fairly tight at some point, but it's all part of it at the end of the day. I think it's going to come down to seeing how far these interest rate hikes keep going and, what happens next, to be perfectly honest. But look, the cooling down that I guess I'm seeing from over here, and correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I don't foresee it lasting more than 12 to 18 months, to be perfectly honest.
And then just from a reference standpoint, Dan, who mentioned at the start of the show, was with Chard Developments over here. So he was on the front lines dealing with the boom and the towers going up and stuff like that. And Dan, to echo your thoughts there, I agree with you. I don't think the residential thing can slow down because demand is still too high. Obviously, one of the challenges we have over here on the residential side of the business, not so much commercial, is the stress test. So a lot of people want to buy, they just can't qualify. So demand hasn't diminished. I think it's just people just can't afford to buy right now because of the stress test rules. But once interest rates come down and stuff like that, demand is still so high. Immigration is still so high that I think it's going to take off again once it has the ability to do that.
And it's funny you say that, Cory. I think that's the perfect kind of example comparison to Ireland is exactly that. The demand is super, super high, but the ability to actually get into the market and qualify is the issue. So yeah, I would say it's very similar in that sense. It's going to be interesting to see where things go, but as I say, I think it's just going to level out here, in Vancouver and here in Ireland as well. And I don't see it going the other direction, to be perfectly honest.
Well, that's a great note to leave us on. Dan, before we let you go, we have our 6-pack of lighthearted questions we ask all of our guests so we get to know you a little bit more. Do you have a few more minutes for us?
Yeah, of course.
The 6-pack is powered by our great friends over at Red Point Law.
Oh, the guys at Red Point Law are fantastic, Cory.
For all your legal needs when it comes to commercial real estate, visit them at redpointlaw.ca. All right, we'll start with an easy one, and we're going to give you an option here. You can do the Ireland version, or you can do the Vancouver version. It's your choice. Favorite bar or restaurant?
Favorite bar or restaurant? It has to be Nook in Vancouver, to be perfectly honest. I love Nook down in Kits there in the summertime when the windows are all open. Can't beat that. It is something I'll never forget. And to be honest with you, that's the main reason I would come back, is just to get the gnocchi down at Nook.
Just for the gnocchi. Okay. Love that. All right. Second question. You found yourself on death row. We know you're not that kind of guy, but what would be your last meal if you were on death row?
Last meal? Geez, I think I actually just said it was the gnocchi.
The gnocchi from Nook.
It was a 2-for-1 question there we got. 2 answers for...
I genuinely love that gnocchi there. It's unreal.
Well, I've never been there for the gnocchi, but now it's going high on my list because I love gnocchi. So it's going to go high on my list.
There you go.
Next question for you, Dan. Favorite band or musician?
It'd have to be Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran. I thought about saying Nickelback because I know Cory.
Yeah.
You love Nickelback, but
I love some Nickelback.
I'd go with Ed Sheeran.
But again, as a redhead myself, I have to love Ed Sheeran as well.
See, you can relate. There you go.
So what we need to do? We need to get a duet, like Nickelback featuring Ed Sheeran.
Oh, wow. I'm out.
That
Sorry.
would be a great. The problem is Ed Sheeran's just so big, he'd probably say no. But if we could convince them
He'd
somehow,
definitely say no, let's be honest.
the best of the both worlds there. Ed Sheeran and Nickelback.
Oh, that would be awesome.
All right, next question up. What show are you currently binge watching on Netflix or Amazon?
So on Netflix, we're actually binge watching. My wife and I are binge watching Buying Beverly Hills. You know, can't get away from those real estate shows as you know, soapy and drama filled they are. Nice to see the real estate. You know,
I'm going to second that one.
$14 to $60 million homes. It's brilliant.
I'm going to second that one because not only, and this sounds bad, not only have I watched that episodes 1 through 8 once, I successfully finished watching 1 through 8 a second time yesterday.
All in
Yesterday.
one
I
shot.
love it. Nice.
Yeah, great show. After what that Selling Sunset,
I
just
can't.
No?
I can't watch that stuff.
But you're such a rock star residential realtor. How could you not watch that stuff?
Because I'm such a rock star residential realtor.
That's not how you guys negotiate contracts?
It's a little too fake for me. It's a little too focused on the drama.
I assume that's how your world worked. I had no idea.
That's not how it really is.
No.
When you live that life every day, I can't go home and watch it on the TV too, right?
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna lie. A friend of mine, I think he watched an episode of like $1 Million Listing, and it had to be an episode where they're probably, I think it was the two Joshes, where they had to be sitting about 20 feet apart at a table, just the two of them, like throwing offers back and forth till they came to an agreement. And he's like, "Is that really how it's done?" I'm like, "No, that's not how it's done." It's ridiculous, ridiculous. But thank you for clearing that for us, Melissa. I thought that's how you guys did it.
All right, last question here. What's your go-to karaoke song?
And it can be after a couple Guinnesses.
Oh, definitely have to be after a couple of Guinnesses. Geez, you know what? This isn't my go-to song, but I was at the Australia-Ireland game there. Sadly, Australia lost by 3 points, but there the other weekend in the rugby. And I was in a location where there was a bit of a musical thing going on, and they were doing a lot of sing songs for the Irish. They love their sing songs over here, and sure enough, they spotted me being the only Australian wearing a yellow jersey there, and I had to sing Waltzing Matilda to everyone in the crowd, which was a bit of fun. But look, that's all I got in that sense. But
so here's a bonus question for you. Best band out of Australia. As an Australian, what is the best band in your opinion that's come out of Australia? I got mine. I'll share it after.
Ooh.
What is the best band out of Australia? There's a lot of good ones. Why
am I having a mental blank on this? Hang on.
You've got.
You have to edit this bit, but
you've got In Excess. You've got.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, we
AC/DC.
Okay, fair.
Well, yeah, AC/DC, but then there's also. Why am I having a mental blank on this? Hang on a second. Hang on. I'm going to have to search this one, sadly.
I can throw out my favorite band from Australia, and that could trigger it. Now, that's going back a few years now. When I was 16 years old, one of the best albums in high school was Frog Stomp by Silverchair.
I don't know what you just said. I don't know what that is.
But this is what you're 25. That's why. I'm 75. So Silverchair, in my opinion, was the best band out of Australia in my high school days.
Noted.
Yeah, I would say Midnight Oil would be the one
that's a
that
good one.
comes to mind.
Yep.
When you say Silverchair, In Excess is definitely up there. Crowded House is the other big one.
Crowded House. Class. I obviously I didn't know they were from Australia. That sounds really bad.
I don't even know who they are.
If you heard the songs, you know
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll listen to it after.
So Dan, here's my last question for you. Is Sydney as nice as it looks on Lux listing Sydney on Amazon there?
Yes, it is. It is. It's honestly a beautiful city. As my mum will always say, the sun is always shining there, and it's always warm there compared to whenever she comes to visit us in either Vancouver or now Ireland. She's found it a little bit cold compared to Sydney, but it is a beautiful city.
Sydney always reminds me of like a hot Vancouver. Like it kind of reminds me of Vancouver.
I'll be honest with you, I never really had much interest in it, and then when I saw that TV show on Amazon, just how spectacular the beauty of it was and the houses, I can see why there's so much pent up demand.
Yeah, it is beautiful. Honestly, it is very much like Vancouver, except just on a different scale. It's busy, it's big, it's, you've got the beaches, the ocean part of life, everyday life, getting the ferries back and forth to Manly. It's a very cool city. Highly recommend going if you haven't been yet.
We appreciate your time. We know it's late where you are there. Can you tell us more how our listeners could find out more about what you guys are doing over at Cairn Homes there?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you can look up on our website. Cory, I can provide that to you to put in the show notes.
We will, for sure.
And, feel free to reach out to me at, danielegling@gmail.com. I'm always happy to have a chat and grow connections and chat about what's happening around the world. Thanks for having me, Cory. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to come on. We know it's late where you are, and we appreciate the insight on everything you guys are doing over there.
Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Cory. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
You.
Take care. All right, folks, there you have it. Our interview with Dan Eagling, all the way from Ireland. A lot of great takeaways, a lot of similarities to Vancouver and some of the challenges we have over here that's being echoed over there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a little bit better that their permitting process is not any better than ours.
Yeah,
so
it's hard to make Vancouver's permitting process look good, and I think Dan managed to do that. Well, one thing I was surprised that somebody anywhere could put up a judicial review or a complaint about the brick color, although it had absolutely nothing to do with your property so far away. And they have to go through that process. It seems like
an administrative nightmare.
Could you imagine if someone just had a vendetta against a developer and just people were just sending these in all the time?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Like if you think about even on social media, comments on a post, it seems that easy that you can just comment and say, I don't like this. I'm not,
Yeah.
People love that. They love to just give their 2 cents.
Yeah, everyone's got their two. And one thing too you find with these, cities that are developing at the rates that they are here in Vancouver is everyone says, we need housing, we need housing, we need housing. Then a great project shows up in someone's backyard and it's not in my backyard syndrome kicks in. And everyone needs housing somewhere else. So you can't sort of win it. Hopefully they get. One thing I found really, really interesting about their process there on the mortgages is you really had to work with a 3.5% multiplier to find out what you qualify for.
And then, of course, minimum 10% and 30% on an investment property, which is, it's difficult here regardless. Yeah. And that's even more.
Well, when you say difficult, we're talking about everyone except for Adam. Because Adam owns property in Kelowna, so he's got no problem getting.
Somehow our episodes have just been, we're going after Adam, apparently.
Well, see, here's the thing now. So some of the listeners may or may not know, Adam's not here.
He's not.
He's nor in the country, nor is he in North America. He's traveling right now. So right now, if we're going to get any shots in at Adam, now's the time to do it.
He's not going to listen to this episode. He
doesn't listen to our show. We're safe over here. We're safe over here.
All right, I don't want to say too much, but
yeah. You have to answer to him every day. I just have to answer to him once a week. So,
well, that was a great conversation with Dan. So, Cory, how can people get a hold of you at William Wright Commercial?
People can reach us at our Vancouver office at any time at 604-428-5255. Let us know what you're looking for, and we'll put you in touch with the best agent in the province for your needs. They can visit our website, williamwright.ca, and sign up for the latest and greatest news. Or you can send me an email anytime, Cory@williamwright.ca. Always love hearing about the show. Always happy to talk real estate.
Awesome.
And then for all those listeners, these shows live at VancouverRealEstatePodcast.com, where there's dictations of the shows. You can find all the links to pre-sales and everything there. We have an exciting pre-sale coming up in the commercial realm that we're very excited to put through the VIP list. So make sure you go there and you sign up, and all of the episodes live there.
And if you want to get a hold of me, you can email me at melissa@VancouverRealEstatePodcast.com for any residential needs.
There you go. Thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Subscribe today.